Right, so we are going to continue on looking at Karnaugh Maps with the 4-input truth table and Karnaugh Map. If you have not watched the video on how to fill in 2 and 3 input Karnaugh Maps, I recommend that you go watch that video before this one. So now our 4 inputs are A, B, C, and D. Now we have A and B down the left-hand side, and we have C and D across the top. And again, we'll notice that the inputs are in a different combination, a different progression in the Karnaugh map than they are in our truth table. So if I'm just looking at CD here, we start with 0 and then 1 and then 2. 1, 0, remember, is 2, and 1, 1 is 3. But in our Karnaugh map, we go CD again, 0, 1, 3, and then 2. All right, so I'm going to fill in this Karnaugh map fairly quickly here. So we start off with a 0 goes in that column, and then 0, 0, 0, 1 is in this cell here. So that is my next 0 there. I'll mark them off as I do them. 0, 0, 1, 0. So now I have a 1, 0, 0, 1, 0. My 1 is going to go here. And then 0, 0, 1, 1 is going to go here. Now I'll switch columns for my next row. 0, 1, 0, 0. So 0, 1, 0, 0 is a 1. 0, 1, 0, 1 is a 0. So 0, 1, 0, 1 comes in this cell here. 0, 1, 1, 0 is a 1. Again, that's my far column. 0, 1, 1, 0. So that is a 1. And again, I have a 0 in the final cell for that column. I'll switch for my next row. Now I'm working in row 1, 0. So that's this bottom row. So now a 0 goes in my first cell, 0 into the second cell, a 1 into the far column, and then a 0 into the last cell for that column. And then finally, I'm working on my row 1, 1. So that's here. And I can see that these are all 1s. But remember, I'm filling them in 1, 1, 1, 1. So in this case, it didn't matter, but just to get into the practice of how we are filling these in. All right, so again, the reason I'm doing this is because from this cell here to this adjacent cell, the only variable that is changing, the only input that is changing between these two columns is the C input. And from this column to my far column here, the only thing that is changing is my D input. So I'm trying to get cells together where there's a lot of similarities between them. And we'll see why as we start grouping. That's the next thing we'll do in just a moment. Okay, so I've returned to a 3-input Karnaugh map to make it a little bit more straightforward as we begin here. So when we are looking for groups in our Karnaugh maps, we're always looking for groups of 1s. So I completely ignore all of these zeros. I'm looking for groups of 1s. All right, I want to find combinations of 1s. So I can see very quickly that I have a group of 2 1s right here. So that is one of my groups. Now, when you're grouping these 1s, you want to look for group sizes that are some of our binary values. So a group of 1 is good, a group of 2 is good, a group of 4, a group of 8, okay? You do not want groups of, say, 6 or 3, all right? So groups have to be binary values, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16. You'll never get groups that big, but you could, as long as there are those binary values, okay? So now I'm noticing this single one over here, and my first reaction would be to just keep it all on its own because it seems to be all on its own over here. But if I look at the values of these inputs between these two cells, I can see that C has the same value between both of those edge columns, and only B changes between those edge columns. So I can actually put this one here in the same group and make a single group of those two ones. Okay, and now to look at a 4 input Karnaugh map. And again, we are looking for groups of ones, and group sizes can be a single element in a group, a single one in a group, or a group of 2, a group of 4, a group of 8, or in a very rare case, you could have a group of 16, all the entire map here. But that is very, very rare. Typically, you will see groups of 1, 2, 4, and 8 in these 4x4 4-input Karnaugh maps. So I can see that I have a group of ones down the right-hand side here. I can also see that I have a group of ones right straight across the middle row here. And I can see a group with 2 ones here. And remember that these 2 edges are considered adjacent, so I can include these 2 ones in there as well. And so sometimes what I do is I just continue this kind of open across the map this way, or using maybe filled in highlighting if you're working in a spreadsheet or in a table to show that those are one group. So I have 3 groups. Each group has 4 ones in those groups. And you'll notice that my groups are overlapping. Okay, so overlapping is fine. But every group should have at least one element that is not in any other group. So I have, here's a 1 that is not in anything but the red group. Here's a 1 that's not in anything but the yellow group. And here's a 1 that's not in anything but the green group. Okay, so we are looking for groups to be as big as possible. Remember, they can only be size 1, 2, 4, or 8. We also want groups, as few groups as possible. So we don't want to include groups that are already covered in other groups. Okay, so bigger is better, fewer groups is better. All right, and every group should have at least one element that's not in any other group. All right, so now that we know how to create the groups, how to find the groups, the next stage is going to be how to determine the equations for those groups. And that will be in a third video.